Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk Trackmania for yet another episode. It is Tuesdays. The time has come. We are back once again. It is episode 2-0. I'm joined by my partner in crime, the lovely man to my left or right, who is also rocking some Mickey Mouse here, representing Let's Talk Trackmania. And still, it's almost the unofficial uniform, I suppose we would say. But how are you doing today, Mr. Turbo?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Just hunted a track of the day actually before that, which was a lot of fun. Didn't get WR, unfortunately, but into the top 5. But I'm a bit drained by playing Trackmania so long again, but was really very, very, very fun again. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing very well. I've just put this t-shirt on fresh out of the wash. It's still wet and I'm very cold, but anything for the LTT crowd who yearn to see this t-shirt week after week. I'm sure that's all people like come in here for anyway, or at least all they look towards my square for. I mean, we know what you've got, the good looks to attract the eyes to yours. But anyway, guys, this podcast is once again brought to you by ESAC, with the main man behind the camera being Erwin Weber. Of course, also a reminder and actually a little bit of an announcement, so to speak, something we'll be speaking about a little bit later on. ESAC is now bringing back the competitive open map pool, or COMP, as you may see it otherwise abbreviated, and all information will be made available to you throughout this podcast. However, we do have a few things to be talking about here and there. However, for any information on ESAC's on-running tournaments, or if you want to organise your own, check out esac.gg. However, I'm TM Scotsman, joined by a beautiful man to my left or right, Mr. Turbo, Kai Turbo Ludwig. It's a pleasure to be joined by you once again. And we've been talking a lot about Trackmania Grand League the past few weeks. We've been talking a lot about the Combine the past few weeks. It's pretty much been the staple of our conversations for the last, I don't even know, 2-3 months or something like that, coming into today, which everything's said and done for this season now. Everything is now in the books. We know what the playoff results were. We know what the league stage results were. We now know what the Combine results were. However, for the man who was on the front line, of course, casting for M&M Gaming UK, none other than the man to my left or right. Give us your impression of the weekend. How did it go for you?
So first of all, it was very exhausting. So it was split in 2 days, and it is good that it was split in 2 days, because we were starting the Combine with a format that we've already know about, with the knockouts. Then I got confused a bit. Is it now 1 round, 2 rounds? We had this 2-lap format, but yeah, it was only one knockout. So you only had 1 live. So I was a bit confused, but that was very entertaining. But of course, if you have 15 rounds and you have to cast 3 minutes through them, it is very, very exhausting. Then we had the stab also with a lot of surprises. So this concluded day 1, was very good. And what I really liked is that nothing was decided yet going to the Sunday. Because after like the 3rd out of 4 steps out of the Combine, nothing has been decided. And the knockout really decided to make the final phase really decided it. But yeah, to just summarize, it was very long and was very exhausting casting it. What was your impression of it? I mean, you were not casting it, even though you probably could have casted it, because Evan played it, who did to speak about him. He did very, very well. One of the best players for me, and also very, very positive. And how was your impression of that?
Yeah, well, first of all, I unfortunately did not hear back from Team Secret as to whether or not they would then be casting on their channel. So, unfortunately, I did not end up casting. And I suppose it was nice to be able to, sit back and watch these sort of events like the playoffs. As much as I enjoy casting, it is sometimes nice to be on the other side of things, letting yourself be entertained, I suppose, rather than bringing, part of the entertainment yourself. But it was quite the spectacle to watch. It was quite interesting, as you were saying there. It was that nothing was really decided, even after some of the steps, of course. Even after, going into the final stages of the Combine, it was still, give or take as to who would actually be qualifying through, who would be demoted, who would be in these kind of awkward positions, so to speak. And just generally how people were performing throughout the Combine. But it was a very, it was an interesting 2 days. both in good ways and bad ways. I mean, like you're saying, it was a little bit exhausting at times. It was a little bit confusing as to, how it was supposed to be working, what was happening. It seemed to be there was a lot of technical issues in day one. I know quite a few of the players were complaining, but I mean, overall, it was a good experience to watch it. Combine's always relatively interesting, at least in the same way that the playoffs is, in the sense that you really had no idea who was going to be taking the spots, and eventually, of course, it got decided right in at the end. Now, of course, spoilers for anyone who has not yet watched the Combine. Positions are all set in stone now. I'll give you them as follows. So, Tialek 16th, Matt 15th, Yannick's 14th, Riolu 13th, Dofalt 12th, Bren 11th, Dark 10th, Massa 9th, Grandaddy 8th, Cap 7th, Carl 6th, Evon 5th, Link 4th, Tween 3rd, Scrappy 2nd, and Mudda 1st. Now, what that means, due to the Combine rule set, is that there is automatic qualifications and automatic demotions. So automatic promotions and demotions, I should say. So the top 2 performing Open Grand League players was Mudda, representing AR, and also Link, representing Exalty, who got 1st and 4th. And being demoted from Trackmania Grand League is going to be Matt from Space Station Gaming and Yannick from Edelweiss. Now, first of all, just looking at the results of our one's going up and one's going down. Of course, we've got 4 players there: Mudda, Link, Yannick, and Matt. Is there any that kind of leap off the page there as being surprising, either that they were automatically demoted or surprising in the sense that, they were in this sort of position, so to speak?
So let's start with the demotion first, with Yannick, because I think Yannick is a player that was a bit unlucky throughout the whole season. I mean, he missed a step. Then he also had issues with a knockout where he just had lags or something like that. So I mean, it doesn't feel fair for me that he is being knocked out. But on the other hand, I think that his mentality is that good that he will just straightly come back at season 4, that he will just skip season 3 and will just blast it out in the Combine again. But take into consideration, he was the 3rd player behind Gwen and Afi who made it through. And he played there very good, but he was also very unlucky there as well, having this bug on this knockout, if you recall it correctly. He was in a fight with both Gwen and Afi, so it's a bit of a surprise for me. But if you have the strict rule by 2 players going out, someone has to go. And going for Link and Mudda is definitely not a thing that is, bad or anything.
It's not a compromise.
Yeah, it's not a compromise. Indeed, that's a good word. But I think for the promotion, everyone thought Mudda will promote for Matt. That was kind of safe, but the last pick, everyone was like, okay, maybe this guy. I was speculating as well, and my names were actually Link and Cap, not Link, Carl and Cap, like that, who could promote. Because Cap has that experience. Carl is also a very, very experienced player, not the fastest, but I think he is experienced enough to like pull it through. But that Link eventually like clutched it out. That was something really impressive for me. He played so good, and definitely deserved for me that he is now in the Trackmania Grand League, because he had some ups and downs this year. And when we just take a look onto the French qualifier, at least, he performed in every round. In every round, he was first. Qualifier, seeding, quarterfinal, semifinal, and then in the final, he was 3rd behind Coco and Gwen. Just to like for me, it was like, okay, he cannot cope the pressure that well. But I think he has proven me wrong there, and definitely deserved now the Trackmania Grand League, which is very cool to see, because it's also an older player that is coming into the Trackmania Grand League, who is 26 years old. And I think the hard effort for him pays off. But people are sometimes just not having a little bit more luck, or a little bit more unlucky. I mean, take Granadi's performance, for example. He was doing very well, but only had 2 bonus points. So that's why he was in P8 only. So, I mean, it's kind of sad to see that he's not getting promoted. But what is your opinion about that, about the promotion, demotion? First of all, about that, and also about, in particular, Granadi.
I mean, I think a lot of people, as we were talking about before, and you just mentioned there, expected Mudder to go up and expected Matt to go down. And I think not only was the expectations that going into the actual combine itself, but it was very much replicated in the actual event. Mudder was an extremely strong performer. He managed to get a first place in the knockout, a second place in the final. And none of his results were below sixth. He got fourth in time attack and sixth in the step overall. So at no point was he lower than sixth in any of the different stages of the combine, which just goes to show that he is a very well versed player in any type of skill that Trackmania demands, be it consistency, be it sheer pace. I'd seen on the time attack when you would look not only at the times he would get in the time attack itself, but also some of the times he would manage to get in hunting the track showed that he was one of the players who could not only challenge the Trackmania Grand League players on pace, but on consistency, as he showed throughout the likes of the knockout and the final itself. So I definitely think Mudder's well deserved for the spot he did manage to go through, and it's not really much of a surprise at all. On the other side, I would also say it's not really much of a surprise for Matt being eliminated. I do think Matt is a very, very good player. However, as I've probably mentioned it a few times in the podcast, and maybe mentioned it a bit of times, speaking about it privately. I think Matt is a fantastic player, but I think Matt's skills lie in other types of tournaments. Yeah. I feel that this type of tournament demands a very technical base, not just meaning tech tracks, so to speak, but a very technical base. Very strong technique in the likes of dirt and tech, especially. Which Matt hasn't had the background in to be able to develop as fastly as some of the other players. And of course, with some of the limitations which he's had, of course, he during the season, or before the season, raised about his health issues with his hand, being a keyboard player, which was kind of amplifying that issue a little bit. And also studying quite a distance from his university, requiring a lot of his time to be taking up through travel and studying, which is very unfortunate for someone who really, being on the younger side of things out of a lot of the competitors in Trackmania Grand League, I think does definitely have a bright future if he starts to nail down the finer points of the game, if he is able to nail down the finer points of this game. I mean, we've seen what Matt is capable in the environments of which he is most comfortable in, things like Zerator Cups and RPG tournaments. We truly see Matt thrive and be rightfully so at the top of the leaderboards in those sort of environments. But you were mentioning another player there about getting picked out. I believe it was Big Granddaddy himself. Was that who you wanted to talk
Granadi,
about?
The German powerhouse.
The German powerhouse. Yeah, that wheel must be keeping both of his arms strong. But yeah, Granadi, I think it's a bit difficult looking at the... It's a bit difficult if you're a Granadi fan looking at the standings overall. When you do see he ended up on 46 points, which is only 12 short of Link, considering that he had 8 less bonus points than Link, shows that he was only... had he had the same amount of points, for example, he was only 4 points.
Yeah.
He only picked up 4 points less than who did end up qualifying themselves anyway. So I think it just goes to show what level Granddaddy has reached by this point. I need to stop calling him that, but it makes me smile. Granadi. So it just goes to show how good he is. A lot of people have been singing his praises for the past year, and in his kind of breakout year coming into multi-style tournaments, he did show that very much, with the exception of the step result really letting him down. He got 13th there, but otherwise a second place, a fourth place, and a fifth place. I mean, that's an average that the likes of only Mudda and Scrappy were able to replicate themselves. So very strong performance there by Granadi, and I think that it just goes to show that anyone really can put in anyone really has a chance to get into Trackmania Grand League. Of course, you have such a skilled player like Granadi, who, had he managed to have a better result coming into the combine, get himself a little bit higher up on the points, then you never know. He could have been sitting in Link's golden spot at the moment. But one player I did actually miss out in talking a bit about was the automatic demotion also in Yannick's. As you were mentioning there, 27 points and 14th means he is going to be going straight down into the Open Grand League now. And of course, it's definitely a big blow to be getting into Trackmania Grand League only for one season and then kind of kick straight back out of it. But he is the player who has been putting in a lot of effort, and I feel the season itself and the combine was very harsh to Yannick, both in the sense where he wasn't able to attend all the steps due to some technical difficulties. I mean, we saw that striking Evon in the very first, not the very first season, the first full season, shall I say, and definitely hampered his performance when he was very promising. Of course, he was one of those players you could definitely see was putting in a lot of effort. And unfortunately, at the start, he was noting quite a lot of, a lot of technical issues in the combine as well, namely some low FPS, input lag, and things like that. And when you're at the pinnacle, in a sense, with combine, of course, being as close to the pinnacle as you're getting outside of Trackmania Grand League, but when you're this close to the top, things like input lag, things like low FPS are very, very difficult to deal with, especially when you're at the point where you do have a lot to lose, of course, if you are, a combine player or to a lesser extent a Trackmania Grand League player. So, yeah, I do feel sorry for Yannick. I do definitely think he'll be back in the Trackmania Grand League, like you said, or at least back in the combine. I mean, who knows what kind of faces we're going to see next season. But is there any other names, any other positions that really stood out to you?
I mean, it's just the comparison OGL versus Trackmania Grand League, because you could have really seen that Massa didn't care at all, kind of, when he was safe in the last step, for example. I mean, he DNF'd almost every round in the last final phase where he got out in the final 8. But yeah, who stick out for me? I mean, you named it here. I mean, we didn't mention Tween, who played outstandingly good for me as well. And then we had Moda, of course, batting up with Scrappy for the top placement. And then also Evon, who played super well, and Granadi. But I think to go back to Granadi here is, I think he still needs one more season. He still needs one more season because, I mean, he started Stadium 1 year ago. Of course, he played United and other things on a very, very high level. But I think he's not that experienced when it comes to stuff like that. And he still needs to, know when to save it on a map. For example, on the step ranking, it was very unfortunate for him that he was dropping down there. I mean, we could have seen Massa, Riolo, and Granadi losing their points there on the last map, which was super unfortunate. And I think next year he will be a contender together with Yannick to join the Trackmania Grand League. But I'm just very interested to see how much he can still improve with a wheel. I mean, he proved everyone wrong with that outstandingly good performance in the combine. That was just nice to see, and a nice representation that he's showing, I can make it from top 16 to top 8, which is just super, super good to see. Also a thing, I kind of want to talk about here, to just go back maybe, or you want to add something to that? It's the thing for me that, it seemed for me that OGL players were super, super hot. They were super hot, and the Trackmania Grand League players, some of them just didn't care. I mean, maybe it is only my perception, but for the looks of it, Massa didn't perform that good as an example now, and we had a lot of players really from the OGL performing very good. So what is your opinion about that, actually? Is it just my point of view, or did you think the same?
Well, I definitely thought the same. I mean, it only takes looking at the results sheet when you realise only 3 people from Trackmania Grand League were actually in the top 8 at all. And when you look down to the difference between, Granadi, who's in 8th place, 46 points, compared to his closest Trackmania Grand League player being Massa, who's 7 points behind. I mean, of course, the gaps do spread out a little bit in some cases, but when you're talking about the players who really were competitive, I would say would be my my keyword there. The players who were really competitive through the whole of the combine are players who are only separated by a few points. You've got Granadi 46, Cap 48, Carl 49, a small gap up to Evon, and then there's 3 people within 4 points. And then you look back, and then there's 4 people within 5 points, 39, 38, 38, and 34. And these are all players which we've seen are incredible performers. I mean, we look at Massa, and we know Massa's a strong player, although of course not played as much multi-style tournaments. But we know what Massa's capable of. Yet Massa didn't show up in the combine. We know what Bren's capable of. Bren nearly reached the grand finals of the beta season, for example. Bren, an extremely versatile and capable player. 38 points, didn't really show up that well in the combine in terms of points, although was, I believe, the points leader until he lost all of his points at the end of the step. So, fair enough, you can give a little bit of leeway for that there. Then you look at the only other one in the list who did not get eliminated that we haven't already mentioned is Riolu. Riolu was 4 points from being eliminated all the way down on 31, which, I mean, I'm astounded by, if I'm honest. I'm astounded, and I must not really hide my words in saying that I'm quite disappointed. I would have thought that this would have been the start of the road where you would see a much better Riolu, and you would see that then coming into the next season of Trackmania Grand League. But no, I mean, I didn't manage to catch the exact performances in case, it was him, maybe losing a lot of points in the step or having a few close fails in the final. But I mean, really that far off being competitive, I didn't really enjoy seeing that, to be honest. I didn't really enjoy seeing the Trackmania Grand League players, apart from Evon, Tween, Mudda, and and the others in some forms were just not competitive for me. I mean, like I said, Bren might be all the way down there in 10th, but as I said, he did lose a massive amount of points at the end of the step, so he might have been a little bit further up there, maybe in the 40s of points. But even still, I must be honest, and I'm quite disappointed by the majority of the Trackmania Grand League players. You could clearly see what ones of them went into this actually caring, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I had this discussion in my stream actually yesterday, where I was also saying that I'm disappointed by the performance for Massa. And then people came up with the argument, which I can understand, he has nothing to prove. He doesn't belong there. He almost qualified. But I mean, he had 16 points to start with, and I think ended up with 39 or something like that. So
39,
yeah. So he gained 23 points in 4. Yeah, okay. It's something, but, even Riolu had more points to come across with that. And he knew that he's safe, but why don't he just show the people like Scrappy did, like Evon did, like Tween did? I just don't like this mentality, this mentality of not performing. Hey, I'm in, and because we all know Massa can do that. Why is he not able to do it? Why did this final mode suits Massa so well? I just don't understand that. Maybe it's just me that is a little bit disappointed by that. But I mean, you said the same. So, I mean, it's a bit sad to see that the OGL players are way more motivated in terms like that. And I mean, Riolu as well. You said it. It's also a little bit of a disappointment for me. He's safe. It has a little bit of a bitter taste for him. But I mean, he is in. And I mean, what is also a bad thing for Riolu was that he, on the actual steps on Saturday, the last phase of the combine on this day was the actual Trackmania Grand League step. And maybe you've seen it where Riolu died in the last part of the identity, where he jumped against the triangle from the CP.
I didn't see that, no.
I mean, he dropped from P9 to P13 because he didn't know where the safe way is. So it's very punishing again.
Yeah, I think I see that now, yeah.
And also Bren. I think Bren, Riolu, and Granadi were the biggest losers of this one. I mean, Bren losing 56 points. Riolu lost, I think, 28, and Granadi 32 points, something like that. Can be something different. But, I mean, I think it's not fair. I mean, that's just my opinion. it's not fair to lose because of one small mistake, to lose all of your points. Of course, that's the system, but the difference between 9th and 13th is big. It is super, super big. And he just had to risk it because else he would have lost his points. I thought it like that, but he had a camera bug or anything like that. He was doing his analyzation on stream, but I don't know, man. It's like it's a bit punishing because there are so many points on the wire, and yeah, just my opinion about that. What do you think about that, man?
I mean, personally, I mean, it was very clear when you were looking at the performances throughout, well, from all of the players, it was clear which one of those came invested into performing well in the Combine. It was very clear to see. You had some Trackmania, some Open Grand League players, I think pretty much all of them showed up very well prepared. Some of them, however, it just didn't suit them. So, example, Dark and Default, it just didn't come together for them. It was clear to see. You know, it just wasn't working out as well for them and the Combine. However, you could see, you know, which of the Trackmania Grand League players showed up to play. You know, Scrappy, Tween Evon, it's easy to pick. I mean, these guys are light years away from the other folks in their category. But, I mean, the important point not only is to note that it happened, but also why it happened. And I think that's a very important point, and also what you kind of brought up there is that the Trackmania Grand League players feel like they have nothing to prove. And also the Trackmania Grand League players feel like they don't have anything at stake, so to speak. Of course, with the system being in place, means that only the bottom two Trackmania Grand League players are at guaranteed risk, so to speak. As in, the bottom two Trackmania Grand League players will be eliminated if they are beaten by Open Grand League players. So, of course, if they get top 8, then it's fine, they'll all stay there. But if, you know, one of them gets beaten, then the last Trackmania Grand League player will be eliminated. If two of them get beaten, then the last two Trackmania Grand League players will get beaten. But for those who were confident of not getting bottom 2, it was just, you know, take it nice and easy and enjoy the show, so to speak. Now, the thing is, right, I don't think we can really go in to blame the players very much for that approach because, you know, they don't stand to win anything from performing that much better in a Combine. I mean, if you can invest 20 hours and know that you'll then be safe going into the next season, and then you can then invest 60 hours, for example, and you can then be competing for the top spots in the Combine, then you're going to go with the 20, because what benefit do you get from doing 60? You don't get any prize money. Again, this isn't suggesting that, you know, you had prize money for the Combine or some shit like that. I'm just saying, like, these guys don't have anything that they have to perform for. They don't have prize money. They don't have any specific benefit going into the next season from placing well in the Combine. There's nothing to perform for. The only thing they have to perform for is to save their own spot in the next season, which I think is very... So for the players who were confident in keeping their spots, I mean, as again, Matt was almost one of those players who wasn't able to compete with a lot of these players through the regular season and was going into it with the rock bottom bonus points of 2. And Yannick's going into it having a lot of technical issues, put him in the back foot immediately. So I can imagine a lot of the other players, you know, felt that almost a big weight off their shoulders, you know, were able to have a little bit more fun going into the remainder of the Combine. But, I mean, how we've noted it, but how do you feel about the why, so to speak, the why we didn't see the Trackmania Grand League players performing? It's easy to see why, but how do you feel about that why?
I think they're solely just not in danger. I mean, when we take a look at Massa Bren, they knew that Riolo is 7 points behind them, and then additional 4 points, so 11 points Yannick's is behind. So I think maybe they knew that it is enough. Massa, for example, with the bonus points that he went in with, 16 bonus points is a lot. But they are just not in danger. And of course, there's no prize pool as well. And maybe they just didn't give a shit. But I mean, that is a bad mentality for me. for me, kind of speaking. I mean, what Scrappy and Tween did is a good representation for the Trackmania Grand League. And also, I was speaking about that so many times. Tween didn't give up any rounds. He was just trying every time. And, this represents his mindset. He's like a positive guy doing it like that, and not things like, I'm through. He wants to prove, even though there's no prize pool, that he belongs there. And this is not what Massa has done for me. That's like, I don't know. Yeah, and of course, Bren was in danger until day 2. Yes, he was, but due to some unluck. But then he just performed very well indeed. But I mean, just take Massa now, and it's just for me a little bit a disappointment. And of course, also luck is involved in that. When you lose your points or anything like that on the 6th lap, it's bad, of course, because Bren could have won it there. But also the thing that you go into the combine with bonus points, it's a thing for me that is like, 16 bonus points versus 2. I mean, you could have seen the difference between Granadi and Link, where nothing would have been decided if they both had the same points. So it's like, the bonus points, do they really display it correctly or anything like that? I don't know. It's like a little bit weird for me.
I mean, yeah, I do agree with you that the bonus points are a little bit of I mean, I do think there should be a reward for your place in the Open Grand League season and the Trackmania Grand League season. It shouldn't just be that, for example, someone like Massa, who was extremely close to being in the playoffs, should be going into the combine on equal footing with Matt, who was out of contention for the majority of the Trackmania Grand League season. I do see that it's an attempt to make things a little bit more fair, but it's always going to be hard trying to represent someone's level throughout a season while also trying to keep as much of an even playing field as possible. But I'm not too unhappy, so to speak, about the bonus points in a sense. I do think the point system was all right. I mean, I'm not really able to suggest any things to improve it or any things that I specifically didn't like about it. But I mean, the question that's, I suppose, been on a lot of people's minds. I mean, Massa seems to have, I mean, maybe it's been from me or through some other people on his stream or, other parts of the community, but it seems to be responding to some of these comments about people saying that the Trackmania Grand League players are never in danger and so on and so forth, and was presenting his feelings on it and presenting his kind of thoughts on how to solve this sort of issue. But I mean, before we kind of go into some suggestions, so to speak, do you think there is any solutions, so to speak, or do you have anything specific in mind to not only address the fact that we did have some people performing very well in the combine and not getting through, but also some of the players on the other side, Trackmania Grand League players, who weren't showing a good representation of Trackmania Grand League because they didn't feel they needed to. And of course, in the case they didn't need to, is there any sort of solution you have to that kind of problem?
I mean, we already talked about that in some podcasts ago, that the players are not in danger. It's a weird thing because, I mean, you also said it. It's at this point, it's hard to give a kind of suggestion for an improvement. And also, I mean, it's a good point that Phoebe mentions there with the I should just don't care for it. What placement I get in the OGL, but maybe not adding a prize pool, but make everything a little bit more flexible, that you have not more seasons, but like, let's say 3 seasons and 4 players go out, and then maybe a prize pool in the combine. But I don't know, because I think like that it is fine, but just so small things decided, and I just cannot like understand why. For example, Cap was ahead in 1 round, and he could have been in the next round for the knockout, and this could have been a fight between Cap and Link. So those very, very small things. It comes down to the wire, and it's just one identity. And this is like really crazy. I have no like real improvement for that. It is hard to really give one of that, because we think we just need to have one more season in order to make up ourselves a clear mind from that. Because also the final mode is new now. It is very exhausting. Yeah, I don't know, man.
Yeah. I mean, it seems to be there's kind of two camps in the sense of solutions, so to speak. I'm kind of very much on one side of them. However, I've been kind of looking a little bit at some of the suggestions from the other side, and I'll explain both of them. So, I kind of like, if you know the saying, well, not the saying, but giving a carrot, as in giving an incentive, or giving them the stick, which is a deterrent, so to speak. So there's either one or two sides. Now, giving the carrot as in the incentive is some of the suggestions are given that limit the Combine to only 4 players or a smaller amount of players from Trackmania Grand League. So in this case, say 4, I believe was the suggestion made. And then out of the 16 Combine players, having them filled up with, 16 Combine players, having them filled up with 12 remaining open Grand League players. So the only people who would then be going into the Combine to have their spots risked would be the players within the bottom 4 of Trackmania Grand League overall. So you wouldn't have people from 9, 10, 11 and 12 having to fight for the Combine, having to fight for their spots in Trackmania Grand League. And in a sense, I do see that it has its merits. I do think when you are at the level of player when you are at the level of play where you are reliably just missing out on playoffs, or you are around about, the kind of verge of getting into playoffs, that you normally aren't a player who is going to be in danger of dropping down to the Combine. You normally are a player with the level of skill who will be able to make it through without that much issue. And we did see everyone who got through from 9th into 12th did actually manage to survive through this Combine format. That is one of the kind of the outlooks to it, and definitely it is a viable solution, I would say. It would very much depend on how you would then look at who would then be at risk. Would it again be only the bottom 2 of Trackmania Grand League being at risk? Or given the fact that you then have 12 open Grand League players, could you essentially see 4 people getting eliminated straight away? I mean, for example, if you were looking at it this way, then you would have seen the likes of Bren, Riolu, Yannex, and Matt going out, and Trackmania Grand League welcoming Mudda, Link, Carl, and Cappuccino. I mean, I'm not. I can see why this would work. I can see why some people would suggest this as an idea. However, I do feel it has its drawbacks in and of itself, and also I do in a sense think that you kind pigeonhole people a little bit too much into the positions which they end up getting in these sort of seasons. When you look at Trackmania Grand League, a position from, from say 10th until 12th might be extremely close. However, you'll have one of those players who will end up going to fight for their turn, 11th to 13th. You'll have players who will go on and not then do anything for the off-season because they won't be part of the playoffs and they won't be part of the Combine. And then you'll have players fighting for their life, despite even only have been a few points apart. However, you do also have the problem that players who, in this case, just miss out on playoffs are then having to deal with these sort of problems in the Combine. So I definitely think that's a point, and it's something that could be considered. Me personally, I'm on the other side of things where I introduce the stick, so to speak. I introduce the deterrent in the sense that I think that there should be more guaranteed demotions for Trackmania Grand League players if they don't perform in the Combine. So what I then mean by that is at the moment, only 2 Trackmania Grand League players are in definite danger. So, and that is only under the position if they get beaten by open Grand League players. Now, that part I agree with. I don't think anyone should get relegated if there's no one that beats them, so to speak. You shouldn't get replaced by you shouldn't get replaced by someone who doesn't beat you. That's I think we can all agree on. But I think that that some people are looking at the Combine as just an easy ride. Some people are looking at the Combine as something that they can half-ass because they know the danger that they are in is significantly diminished. I mean, if you look at the mentality for a Trackmania Grand League player compared to an Open Grand League player, I mean, we won't narrow down anyone in particular, but pardon me. But you look at this, right? An Open Grand League player is thinking that they have to get somewhere in the top 4, top 5. So they have to perform to a level where they can beat, 75% of their opponents, roughly. Now, the Trackmania Grand League player, not saying they will, but they can afford to look at this where they need to beat 25% and they'll go through. So one party needs to beat 7, again, I'm not using these percentages to then say, it's exactly this or statistically this, but, we're looking at the Trackmania Grand League player having to beat 1/4 of the people in order to go into the next season, and the Open Grand League player having to beat 3/4 of the people in order to then be part of the next season. I mean, how do you feel about that kind of separation between, shall we say, the chance that you have coming from Trackmania Grand League compared to the chance you have coming from Open Grand League?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty nice point of view that the mentality and also the thinking there of the players is different. That's a thing that I have considered before, but also the idea here. I mean, I just said it. It should be a little bit different here. Maybe like top 15 and 16 going out immediately. So Matt and Riolu dropping out of the Trackmania Grand League instantly, and then like bottom 6 playing against top 10 OGL or something like that. That would be my idea, but it's just, yeah, there must be an incentive that both parties will perform well. And do you think that it has to be money? I mean, it's just do you think that it has to be money or anything like that? Because else people won't perform or anything, but also then people will say, okay, it's unfair. I got 9th, let's say Massa versus someone, Granadi, who got 16th, so they don't have the same chance. Or you just say, okay, we just don't include those points. We're gonna say if Granadi has, like, let's say 44 points in those 4 steps, he is first compared towards Massa, who only got 23 points, that you have a separate ranking for that. Maybe something like that could work out, that you have a separate ranking after the points will be added up, or before the points will added up, that you get from qualifying from the Combine and the Trackmania Grand League. You get what I mean, or?
Yeah, I get what you mean. The only thing that I think on the other side of that is I feel that may confuse things a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I feel, for example, through the kind of watch party I had for Open Grand League, there was in some cases where people weren't exactly sure what was happening. They weren't exactly sure what the, exactly who was getting what points and what the system was rewarding and everything like that. And by the way, just before he runs away, happy birthday, Kari. It's our beloved Chilean's birthday
happy
today.
Birthday.
But Parkway just discussed about the kind of the two different kind of parties, or so to speak, in the sense that, but I do see what you're saying. I do see that there should be some sort of motivation for those who are performing the Combine, because the way I look at it, right, it must be a real kick in the nuts for someone like Carl, who came into the Combine, don't get me wrong, did have a lot of bonus points, but he came into the Combine and he was essentially one position away from managing to get into Trackmania Grand League, right? If, on the other hand, if you want to look at someone who got much more points throughout the step, Big Granddaddy, he came into the step, don't get me wrong, he ended up in 8th position, but he got 44 points in total compared to some of the, which was a lot more than Carl and Cap throughout the actual event itself. But he managed to get a great amount of points in the actual step itself, even though he came into it with only 2 points, yet he's not going to be playing Trackmania Grand League in place of someone that got 15 points less than him. So I can imagine that being a horrible feeling, being someone who has performed better than someone in the format that they have been asked to perform in, yet that person's getting a chance instead of them. So, but that's the thing. We know the format when we're going into it. We know what's at stake. We know, of course, that the Open Grand League players are going to be putting significantly more effort into it than the Trackmania Grand League players. That's, of course, you play the game by how the game works. That's how this sort of thing kind of comes out, so to speak. But I mean, I've had my little piece of, I didn't want to just repeat it for the sake of Pat coming in a little bit, but just so we can at least address it a little bit, what do you think about the kind of two parties there? The one side where you have the split of 4 Trackmania Grand League players versus 12 Open Grand League players, or in the other side of things where you have essentially a little bit more of the stick on the other side of things, where you have the motivation for people to perform not only in the regular season, but also in the Combine by introducing more danger to them, so to speak.
So I think the system is pretty... the first point, the 4 versus 12, I think it's a very nice idea, actually, but because then people can show them the 13th to 16th. Maybe someone like Bren, who was just solely very unlucky in the season. He lost so many points, and he could show the players, yo, guys, I don't belong here. I'm getting first and over and out. But, everyone could make it, and then you had a display who is, like, the best out of those 16 players then. On the other hand, so you were mentioned that you get a prize pool for the Combine now, or what was that second point? I didn't get that. The second point again, I didn't.
The one I was introducing was the one about how you would then incentivize a higher level of performance in the Combine by introducing more threat, as in introducing more danger for them to potentially get eliminated.
So like that's top 8 goes through and bottom 8 goes out, or something like that.
Yeah, well, something like that, or say 4 people will go through, or 6, or whatever it is, or if you get beaten by an Open Grand League player, they take your place, kind of thing.
Well, the Trackmania Grand League is very exclusive, and for that, people make a living out of that with their organization, and it shouldn't be that much of a swap that, let's say, Bren just didn't perform well, was unlucky, of course, by losing his points, and that he gets out for that. I think this is not fair, but you have to kind of measure it at some point. I think the first idea with the 12 versus 4 is the best. But on the other hand, how does the 11th person feel then? Because it can get really close, and the 11th person can just go with a, whew, I just made it. So at any point, or at any point of view here, that's coming to the other concept again, it will not be fair. So the second system, does it have to be fair? That's the question that I'm asking myself. Does the system has to be fair? And to what extent can you make it fair that a player can surely say, okay, or that we can surely say, we have the top 16 best players now in the Trackmania Grand League, and it works out? Because with this system, I kind of not see it's happening too much. Because just take Riolo, he lost 5 points in the last on the step there by just having a weird camera issue or something like that. It is a weird thing for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very good point you say there, in a sense of what do we really want from the Combine? Do we want the players who performed best in the Combine went through, or do you want the players that you feel are the kind of best overall to then be having as much of a chance to stay in Trackmania Grand League, in a sense? As I see, what some people would put that, from 9th until 12th, should they be in danger, as of course they're very good positions to get in Trackmania Grand League, and I feel that is definitely a very valid point. The problem is in this situation, I feel that the last example we had of this had quite a different circumstance. For example, 9th to 12th wasn't as competitive in the season before, going into the Combine. It was significantly more competitive coming into this year. The playoff results, with the exception of, we look back and see, Cap and Kappa, switching on the beta season, I believe that was. But other than that, it doesn't seem like I mean, I might not remember exactly, but there was a lot of points in the previous season, so not the one that we've just had, but the one before, where it felt like, you know, your people were confirmed in their spots, with the exception, of people like Spam, who were gaining a great amount of points and losing them week after week. I mean, other than that, it seemed almost a foregone conclusion that people were that, you know, X amount of people were staying in or are going to the playoffs. Pardon me. So I definitely think that what I think is the important thing here is I do think it needs to be fair in some sense. I do think there needs to be more fairness. However, I do agree with you in the sense that players who have performed very well, when with the nature of the combine and how it is very lethal, in a sense that you might, like, look at Yannick's last season, as exactly you said there. He performed extremely well during the combine. However, he had an unlucky bump going through the knockout, and that meant he lost a significant amount of points just because of the nature of the knockout. You could have had that in the final stage as well. You could have had it in Time Attack, where you messed up one out of, you know, say the 4 or 5 runs you managed to get because it was only a 10-minute timer. So I think personally that there needs to be a little bit of a mix of the two. I think that there needs to be, shall we say 6 players from Trackmania Grand League, and then 10 from Open Grand League would then compete against each other. And say, you know, everyone who gets in, I don't know, the top 6 will then go through to Trackmania Grand League. I don't know, something like that. I think it's important that the Combine rewards good performances as much as it punishes bad performances. That's what I think is very important here. Good performances both in the season up until that point, as if you just missed out on, you know, say 9 and 10th, you got 11th, you got a good performance, you have an advantage to take into the Combine, and you perform well in the Combine itself, then great, you deserve to be in Trackmania Grand League. However, if you didn't then get a good result in the season itself, you go into the Combine, you don't have a good result in the Combine, you should not be in Trackmania Grand League. On the other hand, you have players coming into Open Grand League. If you come in with a great head of steam and you get a great result in the Combine, you should then be part of Trackmania Grand League going forward. I don't think that's so much to ask, you know. But on the other side of things, one of the other kind of, what do you think of the limitations of systems like this? I mean, we've spoken a little bit in times past about how we thought that some players would be more secure than others because of organizations and things like that. Do you think the system is really, I talk about the system in terms of, you know, orgs owning the spots. I guess some people like to say players being directly tied to some of these orgs. Do you think the system is really flexible enough to warrant such changes like we suggest on either camp, either that we do split it up 4 and 12 or 6 and 10, or that we put more people at risk?
I mean, to some extent, it's not fair. So, like the first point here, it's not fair to put 9th and 16th in the Combine. But they solved that by giving the 9th position 16 points. They solve it like that. And the 16th gets 2 points going into the Combine itself. On the other hand, when from OGL, first versus 8th there, Granadi, it was very impossible, or it was almost impossible for him to qualify himself when he made one mistake that he did on the step. He could have made it, but he had to do the top 4 everywhere. And well, it's hard to draw the line there. If you say 8 versus 8 with bonus points, if you say 6 versus 10 with bonus points, where should you draw the line? It's hard to tell because sometimes you don't know how hard the fight is between the positions. So you need to make an individual pick there. I mean, you mentioned it. The top 8 this time was very competitive. 9th, 10th, 11th could have made it into the playoffs, and they had to play the Combine. Then for that, I can understand that someone like Massa was not that motivated, because he was thinking, I could have won the actual final phase. But you have to draw a line somewhere. And if you say, okay, like this people will play, this people won't, it's a bit weird. But you have to look onto each player as an individual, and if someone like Granadi just performs super well, I mean, it is bad because now he has to play OGL again. So again, I think there should be a second league or something. Then we should be a little bit more flexible with that. That was an opinion or like a mindset from me that I had a lot of time, because the Trackmania Grand League is just super, super exclusive. But it would make everything just way more complex. Maybe the chat has an idea for that, but I'm a bit overwhelmed by that, because the system we have right now is good, really, not gonna lie, but it just makes the head start here for bottom 16 in Trackmania Grand League. It's just very, very hard to do, not gonna lie. So yeah. Hello?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I do think it's very difficult in terms of thinking up a proper solution to be able to figure out how this system can work and be fair for a lot of parties that are then involved in the combine. You know, the parties come into it from Trackmania Grand League in the sense of, should they in any sense have any sort of favourability, you know, going through the fact that it is more difficult to perform in Trackmania Grand League compared to, you know, Open Grand League? You know, is there the argument you then have for that? And then you look at the other side of things where you have, you know, there's significantly different factors going from Trackmania Grand League to Open Grand League, even in the sense where you have completely different positions. You have positions 1 through to 8, so you have the 8th best players coming from Open Grand League, where you have the 8 worst players coming from Trackmania Grand League. So, I mean, there's also the other side of things where you look at the fact that, I mean, the Trackmania Grand League players are getting paid to do this shit. You know, the majority of the ones in the Open Grand League players don't get anything. You know, they get nothing but the blood, sweat, and tears, so to speak. Where some of these players who were in the Trackmania Grand League, in the Combine, are getting paid, you know, significant amounts of money. Not that I'm saying that money's the only motivator, of course, but it's certainly something that I think is a factor in what should be motivating you to want to keep your spot, of course. But I think that some going back to the drawing board could definitely be very beneficial in terms of having maybe even, it doesn't even need to be a massively changed combine system. I think it could do with some little tweaks here and there, you know, and the version of some of the ones that have been suggested today, either being, you know, adjusting some of the automatic qualifications, or adjusting some of the, you know, the amount of players from each league that are then part of the combine and things like that. I think there is a lot of adjustments that could then be had. But I think it's fair to say that, you know, well, certainly we don't have all the answers at the moment.
Yeah, it's really hard to tell, and finding a solution there. I mean, also the chat is quoting it out. Just the suggestion from me or from our side with a second league, there you need orgs with money, 32 players instead of 16. I mean, we have barely found 13, or we have found 13 orgs in the first season, and 3 players were just orgless. Now we have 16 organizations, and I mean, it's a bit weird. I mean, just thinking about a solution, it's like thinking about the universe. The more you answer a question, the more question itself like occur in your mind. Then how this works out. I think there's no real answer to that, because the system is just so complex, and also with the loss of points, and a mistake can happen in just 1 millimeter more to the left, and you're just out. You lose 3 seconds, something like that. So I don't know. It should more rely on consistency rather than just blasting it out in 1, 2, or 3 rounds like the final mode. You know, it should be a marathon and not a sprint. And I think that's what Trackmania loses with the introduction of the final mode. I really like that. It's a good mode, not gonna lie. But at some point, it is a bit like, you know, it has a bad taste to it. I mean, Peg, you played it as well. You were just sitting there for 40 minutes waiting for your next match. So it's a bit weird. Of course, you played outstandingly well, but on the other hand, it's like, and now you just wait, and it's like, I don't know, there needs to be some sort of change a bit from that, because I think with the final mode also included in the combine, also people like Riolu Call really struggled with that. You could have seen that they are more the consistent drivers, and it's again the different meta. I don't know, man.
Yeah. Do you know, I think also it's a bit of a product and almost the way it's kind of unsure as to what kind of playoff format Nadeo wants to go with Trackmania Grand League. It seems to be that almost Open Grand League kind of it tests a lot of different things in the sense of, pure pace. It tests your consistency and everything like that. I must be honest, it does feel a little bit strange when you have your full combine. I mean, I said this going into the Trackmania Grand League playoffs as well, but you have your full Open Grand League season testing a very specific thing, and that's your consistency. Your consistency and your ability to perform under stress. That's what that tests. Yet, in the actual combine itself, you have a time attack, which is all about pure pace. You have a final, which is all about pure pace. You have a Trackmania Grand League step, which emulates what you've kind of been performing under, just with different opponents. And then you have a knockout as well, which I suppose also at the start, at the very least, focuses more on consistency, and at the end focuses more on pace. Which I think that going forward in the combine as well, I think the combine should be a little bit more tailored to suit the players which you want to be part of your Trackmania Grand League. Do you want players who are mavericks who will be able to turn exceptional one-lap pace and be able to, light it up for, I don't know, 1 or 2 steps or something like that? Do you want your players that are more consistent and who are performing, albeit a lower level, but they're performing consistently week after week after week? Whereas it seems like, I mean, I do get the sense that you want to test people in all kind of different skills that they would then be using in Trackmania Grand League, but I feel that some of the players will feel a little bit hard done by, in the sense that they're being asked a little bit too much, and I say that just as I read it being said for Pac, and I do definitely agree with what he says, that it's trying to find the complete player rather than the Trackmania Grand League player, and I think that's a very good set of words. Like, it's looking for the player who can do it all, but Trackmania Grand League does not demand it all for you.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have a player like Spam go into the combine, perform very well in the step itself, have difficulties in the now he says Spam as well, but we're of one mind, me and you, Mr.
Yeah,
Cole.
you're on one mind, guys.
Yeah, but you would have him struggling in the time attack. I think that's fair to say. You would have him struggling in the final mode. That's just the nature of.
We have seen that.
We've seen that. Yet, how would you feel about someone like Spam, who we know is an amazing player in the Trackmania Grand League environment, possibly being eliminated from Trackmania Grand League just because of the fact that the Trackmania Grand League format is rewarding a different thing from what the regular season does, But I'm not to say that it should change or anything like that, but I definitely think that's a point that really could be considered.
Yeah, we need to measure things a little bit more. There should be disciplines for being the fastest, being consistent, endurance, like stuff like that. It's like, I think that knockout is good because it has like both things where when you have to risk, also the step is nice. And then like, okay, final mode, cup mode, what do you take? Like, or time attack, because time attack is on pure pace as well. It's like, it's a bit weird because how you want to measure it, and it does not apply to you that when you are good in the combine, that you're also like good in the Trackmania Grand League, because we have seen the Trackmania Grand League players playing not that good, losing their points on the actual step, and a lot of people have lost their points. So that leads me to the question, actually, what do you think? How will Link and Muda perform, to just go back a little bit from that topic? Because I think we talked a little bit too much about that, and actually, we don't have to conclude it here. We don't have a clear answer to that, because the more you think, the more questions you just that evoke in your head. And I think we just leave it here. You guys can think about that as well. If for the YouTubers, post it down in the comments if you have something to know, or you guys also post in the chat here. And what do you think? How will Link and Muda perform in the Trackmania Grand League? Because I mean, we have the pure pace thingies coming up, or haven't seen them, but it was only 1/4, which was the actual Trackmania Grand League in season 3.
Mm-hmm. Well, to answer your question as to how I feel that Link and Muda will perform going into Trackmania Grand League, I think that the combination of Muda and Phoebe has taken Open Grand League by storm. Not only are we seeing that been performing very well in just in terms of positions and what points are brought home, but also in a sense putting competitive times against what the actual Trackmania Grand League players are managing. It seems we're almost in a similar position for when we were talking about the likes of Gwen last season, where Gwen was putting in competitive times as to what Trackmania Grand League players were managing. He was taking Open Grand League by storm, and he dominated the Combine. So I think we will see Muda being a player who will definitely be competing for playoff spots. As to what extent, whether he'll be, top 4, whether he'll be 58th, I really have no idea, because it's hard to say, because we don't know what the next season's going to bring us. Is the next season going to bring us more of the same, where Carl, Papu, and so on train for 2 steps, and then they've got enough points to reach the playoffs again, and take the foot off the gas? Are we going to see that again, or are we going to see, a proper fight for all of the spots that are then going to be available, including the order? But yeah, definitely think Muda's going to be a shoe-in for the top 8 at the very least, as long as it keeps the kind of rhythm, keeps the momentum, and keeps the mindset, or well, maybe not the mindset, I suppose, doesn't change in a sense as to how he has then approached Open Grand League. I definitely think the sky is then the limit. So who knows in a kind of sense what position we'll end up in. But Link, I think, is another one who strikes me as a bit of a question mark. And I felt it was the same with Afi. Now, in a different way, I think Link has the capacity to be both a very consistent player and a very fast player. But, does he have the full package that he can bring week after week after week against the very best players? So I think that I think Link's a bit of a question mark. I do definitely think he's a player with the capability to be challenging for playoffs. However, I have the same expectations for him that I had for Afi and Yannick's last season. I imagine them competing to get into the playoffs, but I'm not really too sure if they'll manage it. That's how I kind of generally feel about them. How about you?
So Muda for me as well. I mean, just looking at the scores, he is a competitor for Scrappy, or he was beating Scrappy and Tween, which are, of course, very known players and very good players in the community. And I think that Muda will definitely have a chance for the top 8, of course. So I can see him making it into the actual playoffs. Of course, it's too early to say. It also depends on the map. If there's a lot of ice involved, I can also see Muda performing even better than that, because he's just very, very good on that, as well as players like Massa and so on. Just because they put in a lot of effort. And yeah, with Link, it is also a hit or miss for me. I would put him in the same spot as not Afi, but Yannick's, because I knew that Afi is a very versatile and good player. But of course, we haven't seen him playing against those players yet. We haven't seen that one before that. But I think that Link can also make it into the top 8. But I'm not sure how consistent his risky driving is. If he can keep up with players who are in the top 8, if he can keep it up with Kappa, if he can keep it up with Spam in terms of consistency on stuff like that. He is a very fast player. I've seen it in the French regionals, but I have seen him in cup mode, and not in a endurance or in an endurance format. So I just don't know what to expect about him. It is a hit or miss for me. He could be last. He could also be like 7th, 6th, 5th, but not a real competitor for the top 3. That's just my opinion about it. Just happy to see like a not complete new face, but a player that is unexpected for us seeing, because it was very close this time around compared towards season one's combine for the top two, where we had really three players who could make it. We had Link, we had Carl, we had Cap, all could have made it, and now we are left aside with Link, who had, I think, the worst outcome situation going into the combine. I think he had only 10 points, and the others had 12 and 14, if I recall correctly. But just seeing him performing, qualifying, is super good, and I'm looking forward to that. But he will have definitely a harder time than Buddha.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's definitely fair to say it. But it's all going to be, time will tell. I mean, the other thing, I suppose, the final question I would leave with is in the combine at the moment. Because, I mean, just because it's happened doesn't mean that, we can't stop talking about it in the future if some other, points of discussion come up. But since you left me with a final question on it, I'd kind of leave you with a final question on it. Now, last time we did see that, what's the names? Gwen and Afi were through. However, it was decided that Yannex would also be involved. Do you imagine any of the players being switched out at all, or do you think that we already see who is going to be part of Trackmania Grand League next season?
I mean, we have Riolu, Bren, Massa being in the bottom positions. Massa is in big, so that's a big organization, like the name says. Okay. Also, Bren, a big face in the community, so I don't really see them, as well as Riolu for Nordavind. So I don't think that there will be any sort of swap for that, actually. I don't see any sort of swap for letting anyone else going through. Of course, so Carl, Cap, and Granadi would have been the opportunities here, but I think that they will be in for the next season, and we don't see a replacement by either of those players. I mean, last time we had the situation that we had, I think, 3 Orcless players in the bottom. We had Roland, we had Coco, and who else was there? And Revolution.
Revolution, yeah.
Okay, and I think all 3 of them were Orcless, if I recall it correctly.
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, that was just coming in handy for them. So that's why we had a 3-player swap. But I'm not sure if we're gonna see that one. Actually, yeah, Osurf, and it was Marchen way back then who was Orcless, I think.
Yeah, Marston, Scrappy, and Revolution at the end were Orcless.
Okay, and Roland? I don't know. some things like that.
Oh, yeah, Roland as well.
Yeah, it was a bit, I mean, it's almost a year ago, but yeah, I think that we have that we won't have a swap this time. What do you think?
I don't think so either. I mean, it's one of those ones that, like, I would like to see, a little bit of interest at the end. We're going to have him, or we're going to get swapped out or something like that. But to be honest, I think they're secure where they are. I don't think the orgs want to part with these players. I mean, they all have strong ties. Well, they all have ties to their orgs, both as players, Trackmania Grand League players, but also the fact that these players are all streamers. Bren streams and gets a large following. What's his name? Riolu and Massa both stream and get a large following. So these orgs will be paying them not only for their participation in Trackmania Grand League, but also for what exposure they then bring to the organisation itself. So I certainly don't imagine that any of the other players in that list really entice the rest of them to really switch up what value they feel they have, other than if they feel, undercuts. As I know, we can get a different people cheaper, or something like that, for example. But I think it is pretty much set in stone, to be honest. The players that we have for the combine, unless we get some surprises that X, Y, or Z person can't participate in the season, then who knows what we'll see. But yeah, I think it's pretty much set in stone, and now's the kind of stage where we look forward to the next season and I'll be definitely interested to see if there's going to be any changes or any, throughout this season. It's been an interesting season, but it's also been one where there has been, quite a bit of controversy. There's been a lot of talking points. There's been a lot of heated discussions. I'm interested to see what next season brings. Will next season bring any changes to Trackmania Grand League is the question I'm wondering. How, or will we, see much of the same? It's so, who knows? We're seeing, an army of people demanding a main broadcast, it seems, but our stream brings to us many wonderful things. But just to kind of round off our talk about Trackmania Grand League, because we do have a little other thing or so to talk about. What ideally, if you're to kick the door off the hinges at the Nadale boardroom when they're having a meeting about Trackmania Grand League, throw it on the table and say this is happening, what would you change? Would you change anything? Would you add something? Would you take away something? What do you want to see from next season's Trackmania Grand League?
Oh, that's like only one thing, or can I change more things?
One thing.
One thing. Oh my god. Wow, I need some time to think. It's hard to tell because I think there are a lot of
Tell me what's running through your mind.
Point system, point loss, general combine, like when you're gonna go to the combine, and also how you're gonna qualify to that. So those are the points that I think about. And also the map pack for the combine. That is also a very important factor because, I mean, maps were trained by people a little bit more or less, and they already know the tracks, maybe new tracks in the combine. I don't know. What do you think about that? That's a good question.
Well, me personally, I'm torn between two things, and I suppose it's after having them kind of thrown, right in front of my face recently, and it's going to be the combine and the playoffs. I feel the playoffs didn't suit what I wanted to see as much. It didn't really. It didn't really. When I look back at it, I don't feel fulfilled as much when I think about the playoffs of Trackmania Grand League. I would like to see something done in regards to that. Also, I would, and also the combine itself. I would like to see, some sort of flexibility in terms of the combine and some things that we could, that could maybe be worked on in future, going forward, so that we can have, so that we can improve season upon season.
Yeah.
But what I think is important moving forward, what we have had, it seems to be that we've had a different kind of playoffs format each season we've had. So I think with the exception of the beta season and season 1, I think they were similar, they were different, but only in the sense where one of the matches was played in stage in one of them. But anyway,
well, the map kind of thing was a bit different.
Where
the start finish was somehow a bit different.
Yeah. So I suppose in a sense it was a little bit more different. But what I would like to see is I would like to see Trackmania Grand League finally nailing down something they want to continue with. I want to be able to associate in Trackmania Grand League what I can expect from start to finish. I knew for the old Tech Championships, for example, that was always in cup mode. I knew what to expect from start to finish. When Gamers Assembly was coming up, or when Giants Cup was coming up, or something like that. I think it's important now that Trackmania Grand League sets their standard, which they are wishing to be judged upon, and then sticks with. I don't mean it in a sense where I would say that they should then, plant their flag in the sand and then defend it at all costs and remain inflexible to change. But I think in a sense that we need to start making things not more recognizable, but we need to give some sort of consistency between seasons. We need to be able to strike the balance which we want to sit at. Are we going to have 4 maps where you're going to lose points? Are we going to have 3? Are we going to have 2? Are we going to have 5? Are we going to have 6? How many points are people going to lose? Do you even want to stay with the points lost? Do you want 6 maps? Do you want 6 laps? There's a lot of questions, and I think it wouldn't be long, of course, until information's out about the new season. But I'd like to see that things are finally starting to get nailed down now. It's not as much testing and so on that it sounds kind of contradictory to what I say when I would like to see changes and things like that. But I just want to see, even if it's not going to be something I like, I want to see them, this is what we are sure will work, and kind of take it from there. If changes need to happen, then changes need to happen. But it feels like the seasons have still been a test in the last few years as the only kind of issues I had. So I want to kind of go into the next seasons feeling like we're thoroughly out of the test phase. That's what I want to see personally.
Yeah, consistency. That what I wanted to see as well. I mean, now we have seen the final mode, we've seen the cup mode. They have to decide, and also for the combine, they have to decide there, and also what should be played: a 1-lapper, a 2-lapper, a 6-lapper. What should be the main thing. So I think that this is a conclusion. Consistency is missing in that. Okay, so the last topic for today is actually the comps that are going on in Trackmania at the moment. So we have CPS, we have TTCS, we have the Elite Cup coming up. So a lot of things coming up after the combine and also after the Trackmania Grand League that has come to a conclusion, of course. I'm also involved by playing a lot of it, so I really find a lot of joy in Trackmania, also with the Cup of the Day being a more casual event with that. Are you involved in any sort of things like that as well, or are you just watching, casting, or do whatever, or playing maybe?
Yeah, well, I'm involved in kind of 3 things that are really active at the moment, in the sense of CPS, of which I'm playing with Team We All Care. A team with me and some of my ex-teammates, some of my friends, and so on. Also, Team and TTCS as part of Team Useless with Dunsta and Don't Care, looking to compete in that as well. And also involved in the competitive open map pool project, which is most recently opened its doors, which I'll speak a little bit about soon. But I mean, we are coming close to the end of the year, and normally there is a little bit of a break between the over the kind of holiday period, so to speak. It's going. So, are you going to be playing anything more up until the end of the year, or are you kind of going to be finishing off of what you're doing at the moment, and then kind of moving on to the events of 2021?
So I'm playing TTCS as well, and also CPS. But actually, what really bugged me the last weekend was that it was full with Trackmania. I had to delay so many things and had to cancel, like, also my CPS match. I couldn't play. I mean, we are still 4-0, 24-0 in our group, but I mean, it's Division 5, but we're gonna come for you, man, in Division 4. So be ready.
You might play us in the ups and downs.
Wait, you're last?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, nice. Okay, but then we're gonna try. It will be a nice match then. But I mean, there are so many things going on. Also, next week there is the Solary Cup. There is the Elite Cup, which I'm also in. I'm casting the Elite Cup this time. Day 1 and day 2. I'm covering it. Will be super fun. But yeah, my goal for this year is kind of to get more into some sort of pressure situations and to also improve, to come like a little bit. I still love casting. That's what I like to do, but that I want to play more competitions, and I want to try it more. I also want to try the Solary Cup a little bit. Maybe just try to maybe go into the top 8, which is of course very unlikely to happen, but who knows? And then there's also the cup by Pizzle, which he has organized. Maybe the Cannonball Run with the long map. It's a little bit like the 4 Styles Cup. So I'm also involved with that casting as well. It's
4 Styles Cup.
Yeah.
Now I'm interested.
yeah, it's a little bit. It's in 1.5 weeks, and you guys can check it out. It's the Cannonball Run. It is a map that is by I think 6 people of the community. Press pool is €100, so 60 for first, 30 for second, and 10 for third. And it's a map by Baby, Peekaboo, Dragon, Arizel, Rexarimus, Don't Care, Nixotica, Shield Bandit, Pizzle, and Tacky. So they have all built their own style. And it's like, it's grass, it is full speed, it is tech, it is speed tech, and stuff like that. So it's very versatile. And I think I could just link the Discord here because, I mean, you were not aware of that. So you can check it out here, join it in, and I'm not sure if you can still register for it, but I think so. I hope so. I hope that you can still register for it, but check it out here. And yeah, that is just the Cannonball Run that is also happening. And yeah, Elite Cup, that's kind of it. Then TDCS final is, I think, a week after that, which also will be funny. So maybe I'm casting that one as well. And yeah, then there's already December, which is, dude, the year is almost over. And we had actually a lot of things in Trackmania. So we're also going to do a recap for that. But yeah, maybe you are interested in that. Maybe I'm casting you. I'm not sure where you can register there, but you can check it out here, probably. Hopefully. And
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm involved in a lot of things at the moment. Okay, the registration here, let's actually check. You can, okay, until the 26th of November, you can register. Okay, so you can find it in Cannonball Run and then just scroll a little bit up. But yeah, maybe the chat has any other things to talk about, but for me in general, it's like a bit of a pendulum, Trackmania. It's like, it's going up, I'm really interested again, then 1 week I'm like, then again I'm interested, then again, like Kaki was there, then something else was there, and I was, what to do now? And now I have so many things to do with CPS, with TDCS, with Cup of the Day, with also hunting world records that I'm also improving, and I really found joy in this game again. So how do you feel about that? Do you have this kind of enjoyment in the game as well, or not?
Well, I mean, I'm finally getting back to playing a little bit more, which was something I was kind of missing out on. I didn't feel like I had a lot of events that I was really enjoying at the time, or I had a lot of kind of options that I felt I would enjoy, so to speak. But I am now playing again. I'm playing 2 different tournaments, but also I'm really enjoying now getting involved in some other projects in Trackmania, which, as I said, I was going to talk about the competitive open map pool, which is now taking up a lot, a bit more of my time, and it's now, I wouldn't really say introducing, because I've done this sort of thing in some limited sense before, but it's, having myself being in a different side of Trackmania and organising more, shall we say, a tool, so to speak, instead to provide to the Trackmania community, instead of being a caster, being a team leader, being a player. And instead, I like to think I'm now filling another sort of gap, so to speak, in Trackmania, so to speak. And it's something I'm very much enjoying. I'm enjoying at the moment. Excuse me. Well, Figure gets sent to. Never mind. Played on it.
To the gulag.
Yeah, the gulag. But anyway, I'm beginning to enjoy my time more in Trackmania again, because I've got a lot to do. I'm being kept engaged by Trackmania. So definitely, I'm my meter isn't going bing 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 bing. Mine's is going like it's rising, and we'll kind of see how that goes. But yeah, one of the things before I forget and before we all fall asleep is what I've been mentioning a little bit about today, which I mentioned at the start of the stream as well. Is, of course, EACC has opened up what you may again be familiar with previously as the competitive open map pool. However, in a new kind of revamped and kind of refreshed format, so to speak. And definitely, yes, maps are wanted for the competitive open map pool. The map submissions are open on Mania Exchange. Also, of course, players doing my advertisement here in the chat. But yeah, of course, the map submissions are open if you're interested in map testing. certainly contact myself. But I mean, to give us, in a sense, a bit to talk about, what competitive open map pool is essentially going to bring is it's going to basically bring a framework that will essentially look to remove as many barriers as possible between players playing as many events as they want to and tournaments making their own events that they feel comfortable making, both in a sense where we would have, first of all, of course, players having it much easier to be able to participate in multiple events at once due to having a shared map pool over the course of 2 months, would be updated every 2 months. And of course, check out the post made by Erwin there for the information on it, as well as a handy explainer video, because we had to get someone else to explain it, because you know me, I can't stay in the same train of thought for more than 2 minutes at a time. But yeah, it's going to involve, as we said, it's going to remove the barriers for organisers. It's going to make it much easier. Of course, you don't need to worry about having your own map requests, having your own map testers and things like that. It's all tested in-house by either myself or by people within the map testing community, people who know what they're talking about, of course. And also in another sense where we've had it before where I remember back in the old Trackmania esports collaboration, TMEC, for those who know about it, there was always like, we always had like a calendar up and stuff like that, like, oh, I'll have this slot for my event, I'll have this slot for my event, and, you know, having it all planned out in a little, you know, Google sheet or something like that so that everyone had their own slice of the year, so to speak. But now this offers people who want to maybe come in with their own kind of formats, with their own little ideas, so to speak. However, not having to worry about overlapping with different events in the timescale, because they can essentially use the same map pack as these events in a different format, which would allow the players to participate in more events, being, you know, say, you know, some tournaments run on a Saturday, some tournaments run on a Sunday or something like that. Maybe a team tournament is running a solo event at the same time or something like that. So competitive open map pool is essentially being brought back to bring as much possibility to both players to make the most out of the time they're already putting into maps. You know, not having to worry about training new maps every few weeks, or not having to worry about training 3 different map packs, 3 different tournaments. So it's definitely something which we've wanted to bring back for quite a time, and definitely something that we, of course, myself and Erwin, as part of ESAC, are glad to be involved in once again. So, I mean, I understand, of course, you've been on the outsides of tech, although beginning to play some matches yourself at the moment. Although I understand you may not have had the chance to look up at it a bit yourself, Turbo. What's your kind of thoughts on the idea of a competitive open map pool, and thoughts now that it is back?
I mean, I watched the video as well, and I really like the fact that there is like also like a difficulty slider, for example, that you have easy, medium, and hard maps. And I mean, we all know how hard it is to learn a map, but on the other hand, it feels like the identity of a tournament can get lost a bit by just having maybe a repeated tech map with that. But I mean, in general, it's a very, very cool idea. I just have to say that I was not hearing about those things beforehand, but it's a really good thing, and also gives a step, again, goes further into the ESAC site, where you just can check it out there and just create your own tournament, and maybe just want to test it out. And this creates more opportunities for just organizers. I think that's a very good thing. They don't need to rely on other things like on mapping or mapping yourself. And they could just say, okay, I'm just picking this map then instead. And people are aware of this map, have played it, and they can put in the last bit of effort needed to get it back into their minds.
Mm-hmm. I think what's the most important thing about the project, which is really kind of fired me forward and my kind of idea for not only how things have changed, but also my want to kind of be involved in a competitive open map pool, is I think, you know, having wanted to kind of create my own tournament in some cases, I've always kind of been worried myself about what I'd have to go through to run my own event. However, I think that ESAC in general, and of course the competitive open map pool being a big part of that, are essentially opening up as many opportunities for new competitions as possible. And it has been something which Tech was running a little bit dry on, especially recently. And it's something, of course, we hope in future we'll be able to open up to more environments, either be it, singular environments like dirt or full speed, or perhaps even multi-style, although that presents its own challenges, of course. But I definitely think that the project is one that's of course worth a lot of people looking into. As like I said, I mean, when I would be interested in hosting my own sort of tournament, this takes away a lot of the worries I would have had for that. You have ESAC, which makes it much easier to host your events in and of itself, just with the framework, not having to worry about, finding your way around tournament, which isn't tailored to Trackmania, of course. Finding your ways to input results and have teams drawn together and all the rest of that kind of mess. And also now removing the barrier of having to worry about getting map testers, getting maps submitted, choosing the right maps, having, knowing that the maps that you have then chosen are going to be of a quality. That's essentially another worry that then gets taken out of your hands by this project. So I can only hope through my involvement with this project that we have opened as much doors to people in Trackmania as possible, both in a sense of people who just want to make it easier to, play in more tournaments, or people who want it to be easier to host their own tournaments in and of itself. But I mean, I know I've kind of, faffled along about it, but check the Twitter post there, check the video if you want a little bit more explanation about it. And remember, of course, the map submissions are open, and if you're interested in map testing, no matter whether you're finding yourself a player in Division 1, whether you're finding yourself in Division 290, hit me up and let me know if you're interested in map testing, because we are interested in people's opinions, both from the very bottom to the very top. So get in contact with us and let us know. But yeah, I mean, that was all I had in the tank for today. That was all the topics, at least I was going to bring to the table today. And I'm glad to see that we have had a lot of people joining us today, a lot of people bringing up some points for us to discuss and engaging with us. As always, it is a pleasure for everyone to be joining us and to be enjoying the podcast once again on Tuesdays. And fear not, we will not be having a break, hopefully, anymore. But next week, we will be back, same time, same place, right here at twitch.tv/TM Scotsman. I actually did spell my own, Twitch handle wrong recently, so there's, a little bit of a embarrassment I'll share with everyone else. So I'm STCOTS man. So that's how it's now been changed. Yes. So at least it's not only Pikes that was spelling my name wrong in Trackmania. Socks man. I suppose we could go with that. But yeah, I hope everyone has a spectabulous night. I suppose Mother for you probably like morning or something. Regardless, I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day, the rest of their week, until we see you again. Certainly hope to see you at the weekend with more Trackmania action, which will either be on his channel, like that way or this way, or my channel, as I'll be streaming at the very least on Sunday. But who knows? We will see you all next week at the very latest. Good night, everyone, and speak to you soon.
Goodbye.